Hi, and welcome to my video tutorial. Today we are putting together these cute little rose buds that are cut using the Close to My Heart Cricut Art Philosophy cartridge. And I'm going to show you my favorite new product, or one of my favorite new products out of the current catalog, and that's this Color Ready ribbon. So here's my Color Ready ribbon. You can see I already started inking it up a little. All I'm going to do is put some scrap paper down and ink up one of these big daubers. You can use the little daubers, but these big ones work really super fast. I'm going to go over one side and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the other side. And the ink I'm using for this is the Close to My Heart Tulip. And the one thing I'll show you about this is this, if you can see, this end isn't inking up, and the reason for that is because I stuck a little fray check, either a fray check or liquid glue on the end, because that'll keep it from raveling as I'm using this dauber and kind of pushing on it. It doesn't color the same, but once we've done our bow, we're going to snip that off anyway, so I found this works pretty well. And then the part of the basket that I love the most are these cute little rosebuds. So this is what this looks like cut out. I've cut two different sizes. One is about 3 inches and one is just a little less than 3 inches. And all I've done is gone ahead on this white cardstock and started using with the tulip ink, just adding a little bit of ink to the ends of the petals. And we can go all the way around and do that. And what I'm going to do with these petals is I'm going to flip them out a bit, so you're not really going to see the underside. But if you want, you can add a little bit of ink to the underside. Just some of them you might see a little bit, and so it kind of finishes it off pretty nice. You don't need to do a whole lot. And I do this really fast because these petals all rolled together, you don't see them all that well. Okay, there we have it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bamboo stick and I'm going to flip my petals out. Now, when I roll up my rose, it's going to kind of flatten these out, but what I found is if I do this ahead of time, it makes it easier to flip them, less likely chance that I'm going to end up ripping my cardstock. And when I cut these out, I actually found the thinnest white cardstock I could, because I think you want something that has some body, but the thicker it is, the harder it is to kind of get these rolls in there, and it doesn't add as much bulk either. So we're going to keep on going. When you kind of get to these end ones, they're not going to really flip out a whole lot, so I don't do a whole much with those. So again, our side with our inked edges facing us, and we flipped our petals down. And then we're going to start at this end, which is going to be the center of our rose, and we are going to roll up. Again, I'm just going to use this bamboo stick and kind of use it to help guide this around. And it doesn't really matter quite how tight or loose you go, but I did find if you tend to go a little on the tighter side, it makes it easier to open up. In other words, it's easier to loosen it than it is to tighten it after the fact. Mine here is kind of loose, so I'll have to see if it'll work. And then once I get towards the end, I'm just going to kind of wrap it without the bamboo stick. Kind of roll it around and then let it pop. It looks pretty good to me. Actually, it is tighter than I thought it was. Then I'm going to come in, and on this little tab part, this round area, I'm going to put a pretty good sized dollop, oop, that might be a little too much, of a good liquid adhesive. I'm using liquid glass because it's real super strong and it's going to hold these in place. And then I'm just going to kind of position this around, and I'm going to use my fingers to make sure I'm kind of pressing those layers into my liquid glass there at the bottom. And it helps if you can hold this for a few minutes and pull out your bamboo stick and kind of stick those in there. Make sure you've got a nice little center area where you can stick your sparkles when we're all done. So again, this is going to have to sit for a little while to make sure it's good and dry. So I went ahead and I got one done ahead of time here. There you go. All dry. And then I'm going to go back and I'm just going to flip these petals out a little bit more. Especially these inner ones, because I flipped them out ahead of time. It makes it so much easier. If you've got this too tight and you didn't pre-flip them, you're pretty much going to rip your petals. So I'm just going to flip them a little bit more. There we go. And then the last thing I'm going to do is add one of these sparkles using the tweezers. And I found if I point it down like this, and I can go and get it set in there pretty well and just make sure that it's good and in there. And then the last thing we're going to do is I just die cut with my Cricut some simple petals, and I'm going to add a little bit of dimension also with my bamboo stick, kind of flipping them up like this. There you go. So let's pull my basket back out real quick and I'll show you how this all comes together. So what I did is I inked the edge of my basket before I put it together and then assembled it. For this area here, it would be great for a little sentiment stamp. So if you want to do that, go ahead and stamp it onto your paper before you stick it onto the basket. And then I just added the leaves on so they kind of flip over the edge. Stuck my 2 roses there, tied up my ribbon, and then kind of stuck it in there, and good sized dollop of glue or a glue dot, and just kind of poke it in there, and then it's kind of nestled right in. Thanks!